Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 111 of Kouryer Podcast. Our today's guest is Mr. Max Marharit. He's a 3D artist and concept designer and also lead artist at Corbax studio from Odessa, Ukraine. Now, with that quick introduction out of the way, could you please give us a little introduction on how we got into visual arts and design?
Yeah. First of all, want to say hi to all of you who listen to this podcast, and thank you for having me. Uh, as for the how I started, I think it was all began in when I was a child. I was always into art in general, into some like crafts. I always enjoyed like playing with uh, this Lego constructors and stuff. Try to like usually you have some idea with a box you buy, and they already have like an idea what can you create from these pieces. And I was also always like curious what else I can create out of those pieces. So I was I started designing things uh, in my childhood. So um, I didn't really studied art uh, anywhere, even though I have had some opportunities back in school. Like my parents suggested me to visit some art classes in school, but I wasn't really interested because once I was passing by like those classes and just checked what was they doing, and I saw they like was painting some fruits and vases, and I wasn't really into that stuff because like in my notebooks and some sketchbooks I always had drawings of robots and some vehicles, spaceships and stuff, and they were not doing those things. uh, so I just was like developing those skills just for fun, just on my own. uh, then I remember when my parents bought me my first computer. Uh, uh, I didn't have an internet connection in that time, so um, like all the things that were just on my computer, I was interested in them. So uh, once I discovered this simple tool in Windows, so like Paint, and I just started to exploring things, how everything is working there. Uh, then I also discovered another application mm, with which you can do some animations or like movies. Basically, you put a sequence of images there and it creates an animation for you. So I got this idea of creating my own cartoons. So I started to draw some simple mm, like things and just try it how it works. Make a sequence of images for I don't know 20 seconds long. My first animation. Was very happy about that. Uh, mm, then I think in 2 or 3 years I got internet connection, and I discovered that there is much more application for those kind of things, for animation, for drawing, like Photoshop. And once I discovered like a video on YouTube, like 30 seconds short cartoon made completely in Blender, I think. And I was really like inspired by that, and I saw that this is uh, my level up, so I can learn a 3D now and to do even more, much better quality like cartoons. So I downloaded Blender. It wasn't that much powerful in those days. It was about 8 years ago, I think, when I first discovered it. So there was not many tutorials. It was hard to learn it, and then I realized that mm, like doing a cartoons in Paint and just like creating a simple animations, it's not the same as creating a complex animations in 3D, because there are much more things involved, like you need to model, you need to create the materials, textures, set up a lighting, render it, maybe do some post effects. So it's too much for one person. Uh, but I also realized that I enjoy this process of modeling and creating things in 3D. So I just shifted away from this idea to create cartoons and just started to learning 3D modeling. Like I was interested in, I think, every area. I was following every tutorial that I can find on the internet, uh, on Blender. Yeah, I just was so interested in that. I wasn't even planning to make it a career in future, because it was just for fun and I was really enjoying it. And I was thinking about somehow make a profit out of it, when there was a context by the end of the school in which you can, like, basically you needed to create some idea, uh, whether it a program or something related just to IT. So I decided to create some models like laptop, a tablet, and a phone. And with the help of my friend, we created a script for browser in which you can just rotate those things around and mm, basically just look at those models in a browser. So the idea is you can use those things like in some online marketplaces to have a better sales for some technology devices. Yeah. And I won this contest. Yeah, I got the first place, and I was so shocked, like that, mm, like they immediately decided that this is the best work, and I was shocked because that wasn't a big deal, like as for me. But at that moment, I decided that I might turn it mm, to something bigger than just in a hobby, and because people are really mm, like the idea and like the whole thing with 3D. Yeah. And then I decided to like apply to some kind of a uh, engineering university, like related to that. I thought that they can teach me something, but yeah, eventually it didn't work out very well.
Yeah, and I assume you try to enroll in industrial engineering, right? Wait, sorry, industrial design, drawing. There's it's something like that, right? There's a major.
Mm, yeah, at that time I wasn't like so good at understanding how the whole industry work, and I just picked up the name of a university that was more related to like any sort of graphics, because the other were about like just programming or mm, something I wasn't interested in. So I just picked it out of excluding the other. Yeah.
Yeah, I can totally understand what you mean. Like, there's so much, like, the hard science and math and all of that, that it gets boring. But you're there just to design the cool stuff, and you're like, wait, this
Yeah.
is this is boring as hell. I'm bouncing. Like, I understand what you mean exactly. And it's actually, speaking of, like, the whole studying, like in going to university and all that. Were you originally studying art and design, like when you were like in high school and wanted to, probably thinking about your future? Like, were you originally knew that you wanted to go the art and design route, or you were pursuing another career path? I mean, of course, you briefly mentioned that you kind of tried to study, in that university, but also, to add to this question, what is your main branch of design that you're focusing on? Actually, I mean, I already mentioned in the introduction some stuff, but if you could also touch on that, that would be awesome.
Hmm. As I said, I wasn't really studied that. The only source of learning was an internet, in which I was just looking for some tutorials, and that's all. And the university also didn't help me at that point so much, because uh, at that point when we mm, kind of started to learn like something about the 3D, was on a third course over university. Like by that time, I already um knew much more than like the teachers, and i- it was like just useless for me. Uh, yeah, and about what in what branch of design, like am I right now? I kind of shift from just 3D modeler, like in game development, to more of a 3D concept designer, because mm, like I said, I always was interested in that field, like to design something, like to come up with some ideas and represent it in some cool way. And that's what I am like trying to develop right now.
All right. And speaking of, like, the whole art journey and all of that, I was wondering, how does your design process usually go anytime you want to start working on a project? Like, what does a structure of your pipeline look like when you want to start working on something?
uh, Usually I just start with the idea, what the idea of the whole project, like and then usually some rough sketches helps, uh, because for me it's mm, not so easy to go straight in a 3D application and start like modeling something, and even make a block out. I always start with some sketches, because I have this very rough idea in my head, and I need to just draw it somewhere to just to get this better understanding what I want to achieve. I also write down like a brief for myself, what things I want in this design, whether it device or robot or vehicle. Like what is the purpose? What with what like things he can uh, serve its purpose, and so on. I just writing down like a list of things this design should have, like idea, and then try to solve this problem with a language of shapes and some mechanics. I think like I'm starting. I usually start to do things this way.
So, from ideas to sketches, then to 3D models. That's basically it, right?
Yeah, yeah. I never like this idea when you just come up with some cool shapes and you're trying to guess what is that might be, or like no, I'm doing it like vice versa. I always start with the idea and then go for the shapes. Yeah.
I mean, that totally makes sense. I mean, a lot of people are actually doing the reverse of you. I mean, for some people it works. They just take a shape, like for example in Blender, and they just play around with it until their imagination sees something, and they work on that. But I
Hmm.
mean, I personally like the your own methodology, like because for an idea, I like to first rough sketch it on a paper, and to get a clear idea first in my visualize it in my head first, then visualize it in the whatever software, like, or whatever I'm working on. I mean, to me, that's kind of like, from myself, that's kind of more, effective as well. Now, let's jump into a really interesting question, and which I think you'll kind of like it as well. what was the first art job paycheck you ever got? And what was it for? And how did you feel at the time when you actually realized, oh shit, I can actually make money with this? Like, what was it for? When was it?
Mm-hmm. Mm, I think the first job I have uh, had, mm, some guy just reached to me through some social media, and he was located like his small company in the same city when I was living. So he invited me to his office, introduced to his like employees, and just briefly described what his project about. It was mm, kind of like a training program for sailors. So they created a VR game in which like sailors will get introduced to how the ship's working. And yeah, I really liked it, like the idea, and that was like a first opportunity for me. And back then, I already had a like a good enough portfolio for that project that I like mm, can do like the tasks they require for me. Yeah, so I just accepted the offer and started doing some small objects for them. Mm, yeah, something like that. It was close to, I think, game development because like the whole modeling process was about like PBR and like those things were a low poly. So from that point, I started to like learn everything about game development in general. Yeah, and that was my first job, like little gig, I suppose.
Yeah, and you mentioned that it kind of felt like a game development project, and I can only conclude from that sentence that so it means you previously worked on game development stuff as well, right?
No, I was briefly like learning about it maybe uh, a few months before he reached to me. Mm, it wasn't like too hard. I just like found that information how things work in games. Like you create a high poly, you create a low poly, you do your bakes and stuff. And I was just interested in that area. Mm, yeah, and by the time he reached me, I already knew those things, and so it was easier to accept his offer because I already knew all the things.
All right, interesting. Now let's get down to some juicy business. Actually, like the yesterday, I also interviewed another artist. I don't know, you probably know him. Your niches are kind of like similar. Do you know Gavin Manners? He also exactly like you works on spaceships, a lot of robots, mechs, the same stuff as you. And
Maybe like I have a memory like I'm bad at names. I usually can tell if I see his
by
work.
works, yeah,
Yeah,
I know.
yeah. Because usually they have like actual names, maybe on our station and on Instagram they have some sort of a nicknames, and you
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, I
sometimes
know.
confused. Yeah.
Yeah, so what I was gonna say that we brief extensively talked about the our inspirations when it came to like how did he find the subjects that he loved, like which is like environments, makes science fiction, like a certain type of niche of science fiction, like this stuff from sci-fi worlds. And we talked about that, and I actually want to talk the same subject with you because you have also the same niche. um, since when did you realize that, oh shit, I like sci-fi more than anything else, and I like robots and stuff like that? Which movie or game or franchise like inspired you at first?
Mm-hmm. Mm, I can say that in childhood, that was definitely a Star Wars movie. I was really inspired by the vehicles and all the things they created in that movie. I tried to recreate them like in my own way. And then when I started to learn 3D, I was kind of interested in everything. I tried like almost every area. I tried like interior design, exterior design, tried to do some characters and props and guns, just because I had this curiosity. Like I wanted to recreate every single piece just to challenge myself. It was just interesting. And then I think just by excluding things, I found out that mm, I still love this um, like sci-fi theme because maybe because you create things that have never been existing before, and it's much more interesting than just recreating something it's in 3D that already like exist. mm, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, for me, like there was a lot of inspirations, but even as you, I mean, the same as you, like the Star Wars games and movies when I was like really, really young, because that was the only science fiction thing that was available at the time for some reason. And yeah, the AT&T walkers, all of those stuff, the spaceships, I was like hooked, from that time.
Yeah.
And yeah, and we even talked with Gavin Manners like yesterday about the stuff in Dune. Have you watched Dune?
Yeah, yeah.
What
I
What do
really
you think
liked
about
like
that?
those design, like the design of helicopters. They are
Yeah,
just
so I'm not the same person who. I mean, I'm not the only person who didn't really quite like
yeah. I really
the.
like the idea and how they looks. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
amazing. There
yeah,
was so much things. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah. I was gonna say like the way the birds flap. Like yeah, I mean it's something new and interesting, but it didn't land with me to be honest that much. Like I like the concept, as you said, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
Hmm. Uh, there always also was like many other things. I just like um, they have some devices like to
The
watch the
shields.
damage. Yeah, the shields. I just sometimes like the whole idea of the device, not just the actual design of a physical form of it, but yeah, the whole idea is sometimes really cool.
Yeah, and is there any particular franchise of video games or movies or series or anything that you particularly really like and is your favorite?
Mm, I think the one that related to sci-fi is StarCraft. I really liked like the humans race and all of their like vehicles, and I love the animations they did, especially when you have those features to upgrade your like tanks and things, and the way you do it, the animation is changing. Yeah. um,
How about Metal
mm,
Gear Solid, for example?
yeah, I saw some designs, but I never really like played it too much. Yeah, sometimes I really like the game. For example, Death Stranding. I have never played it, but I've got an art book, and I was really like enjoying looking at the concepts and like the work they did. Like this main um, suit the main character have with this I don't know how to call it, a robotic flower like spinning.
Yeah, the thing that
Uh,
spins. Yeah,
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 yeah.
I know.
The actual design is really unique and cool, and yeah, I was really enjoying looking at all those works.
Yeah, the main concept artist and art director behind the series is Yoji Shinkawa, and I think you got his art book from the franchise as well. And well, let's get to one of the hardest questions that everyone says is the hardest questions of the podcast,
Mm-hmm.
which is don't worry, it's nothing personal. It is who are your favorite artists and designers that have inspired you the most?
Mm. Um, I think mm, it's those people uh, with a similar mm, like design style as mine, like because I got a lot of inspiration from that. It's Vitaly Bulgarov, Adam Gorazio, uh, Ivan Santik, uh, Alex Seneschal. Yeah, there are just a lot of them, and I was always inspired by their works, but by how they approach like to design. I also was learning from them. For example, like my approach uh, is basically comes from Eden Gorazio way of uh, like how to start a design, start with an idea and decide mm, what they think about and then start to develop it. Yeah, that all comes from those people, and not only like things related to art, but mm, I would say the way they mm, like solve problems in general and their attitude uh, to the work and in life in general. Yeah, that's what really inspires me.
All right. And what area beside the area you're working on right now, which is of course, art and design and all of that, would you be interested to explore and learn in the future, given if you didn't have to worry about time and money and resources and all of that? Let me rephrase this question another way. What long-term aspirations and goals do you have? Like, given that you had enough, time and money and everything, you could go after it. It could be learning anything. It could be doing anything. Maybe it's something you have in your head. And what is that?
Mm. I think I'm already on that path because I already created myself some sort of a financial pillow, and I can move from game development like as a 3D artist and go for a career of concept designer because I wasn't really hadn't mm, have a chance to uh, have a task based on a like the whole task will be about like concept. Usually I did some concept work, but it always was just a full cycle creating a 3D asset. So uh, usually they gave us some sort of block out, and I could make some changes to that, like do some concept suggestions, and then it's just the usual uh, like full cycle process of creating a 3D asset. And like now I want just to uh, do the whole idea, like yeah, the actual idea from zero, uh, and yeah, just to create a concept and like the rest of the work, uh, transferring it to game engines and stuff. Yeah, I'm kind of done with those things because they are more technical to me than about like creativity, I think, because all this like stages of high polys and making a low poly, UVs, bakings, they are all more technical and don't involve that much creativity than doing the actual idea and a concept art.
Yeah, I can totally get how you would get burnt out from that. And well, we've reached the final section of the podcast, which is appropriately called Final Words. And I'm going to explain what it means. Basically, to anyone who might be listening to this podcast in the future, maybe a week, a year, 10 years, 20 years, who knows, maybe 100 years, and they've reached this point of this podcast, this time, all right? We're at 29, 30 seconds. And right now, you have this window of opportunity to leave any listeners in the future a message from you to them, or messages, you know, as a human to another human. It doesn't have to be art. If it could be just anything you want. What would that be?
Mm-hmm. Mm, I would say. listen to your inner self. uh, don't rush your decision based on other people opinions or uh, maybe some trends. Just find a thing you like to do and you really enjoy doing it. Just go for it. Don't be afraid of failures. You can even do the opposite, like seek for them, challenge yourself from time to time to make those mistakes. Because when we make mistakes, we usually learn from them, and that's how we grow. Mm. And don't look at some major failures as on some signs of fate, I would say, because you are the only one responsible for your future and you decide what it will be. Uh, I was always inspired by some people who we all know as a successful ones, uh, but not everybody knows how they started their path. For instance, like we all know Steven Spielberg's a film director and producer, but not anybody knows how he actually like started because he hadn't graduated from school. He failed 3 times to apply to cinematography college, and still he was like persistent and constantly was uh, moving towards his like dream or goal, and eventually he succeeded. And there are many like of those examples, like also like Michael Jordan, as a basketball player, was kicked out from school basketball team because they said he didn't have a talent or he was just bad, something like that. So you just need to believe in yourself and never give up. Set up yourself a direction in what you wanna move and just go for it, despite everything that may happen on your path.
All right. I mean, that's a good note to end this podcast on. Thank you so much for coming by, and thank you to anyone who tuned in and listened to this episode. Be sure to leave a comment down below on whether Castbox, YouTube, Instagram, basically anywhere that has a comment section. If you have any suggestions or anything you want to say, you can even DM me on the Kouryer podcast page on Instagram as well. And again, thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you, sir, again for coming by for this episode. And see you guys till next episode. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye.